Okay, so today we are going to be talking about how to take what we've learned so far about equations and relate them to tables and to graphs. So example 1, it says that the Booster Club wants to raise $50 to donate to a local charity. They buy pom-poms for 55 cents each. How many pom-poms do they need to sell to reach their fundraising goal? So their goal is $50, and they buy them for 55 cents each, and we want to figure out how many do we have to sell for them to actually make that profit of $50. So before we can do anything, the first thing we need to do is figure out how much they're actually making off of the pom-poms, because right now we know that it cost us 55 cents to get the pom-poms. So we have to figure out how much money we're actually going to profit off of, because if you guys see, it says that they're selling them for $1 each. So one pom-pom we're selling for $1, but it cost us 55 cents to buy them. So we need to subtract those two to figure out what our profit's going to be. So we're selling them for $1, but we bought them for 55 cents. So we need to see, if we sold them for $1, how much are we actually going to make off of them? So if we subtract these two, we're going to get 45 cents. So that means that every pom-pom we sell, we're making 45 cents off of them, because we have to pay that cost of 55 to buy them. So that's how much it costs us to buy the pom-pom. So now that we know how much we earn, we can think about what is going to be our independent variable and what's going to be our dependent variable. So what we have to think about is, so we have number of pom-poms sold, so how many pom-poms we're selling, and then the amount of money that we're raising. And so one thing that I like to think about, if I can't just right away think of what the IV or DV is, I like to think about what comes first, because the independent variable always comes first. So you might want to write that somewhere as like a little reminder. So the independent variable always comes first. And so what I mean by that is, we don't get any money here until we sell a pom-pom. So the first thing we have to do is sell a pom-pom before we can make the money. So that's our independent variable, the number of pom-poms sold. And so it's our independent, and it affects the dependent variable. It affects how much money we made, but it also comes first. So IV will always come first in this scenario. And our DV here, our dependent, is the amount of money that we are making. So amount of money raised. Okay, so now that we know our independent dependent variable, we are going to think about how can we use a table and a graph to analyze the relationship between the independent and dependent variables. So our step 1 here, it says to make a table to relate the number of pom-poms sold N to the amount of money raised, R. So I'm going to make a little table here. Actually, I wonder if I can insert a table. Okay, I guess I can. So I'm just going to draw my table here. That would have been nice if I could have inserted a table. Maybe I can figure that out later. Okay, so I'm relating pom-poms sold N to amount of money that we raised, R. So, and we know that we want to make $50 here. So I'm not going to start at 1. Let's start at 10. So say because we're only making 45 cents each. So let's say we started at selling 10 pom-poms. Say 10, 50, and then maybe 110. So let's think about this. If we know that one pom-pom, we get 45 cents, how would we figure out how much money we're going to make off of 10 pom-poms, off of 50, and off of 110? What would we have to do there? So what we're actually going to have to do is we're going to have to multiply each of these by our 45 cents to figure out how much money we are going to make. So let's say that we sold 10 pom-poms. How much money would we have raised if we sold 10 pom-poms? So we would have made $4.50 there. And just as a reminder, if you guys did not get that one right, when we're multiplying, we do not line up the decimal. So we would set this up as 0.45 times 10. So you only line up the decimal when you're adding or subtracting. All right, so if we sold 50 pom-poms, we would make how much? We would make $22.50. And if we sold 110 pom-poms, we would make $49.50. So now you guys can kind of see that relationship between how our independent variable is impacting our dependent variable. You know, the more pom-poms we sell, the more money that we make, and we have to sell pom-poms to begin with to even make a profit there. Okay, so that was step one. So putting all of that information into our table. So now let's go on to step two. It's asking us to graph those ordered pairs on the number line. So I'm going to rewrite our table out here for us. So we had number of pom-poms sold and money raised. So we want to go ahead and graph these two. So we want to put our IV and DVs on our graph here. So let's start with our first one. If we have N is 10, and so for 10 pom-poms, so we're making our profit of R. So our X variable, our independent variable here, and our dependent variable here. So think about how would we graph these points here? What would we have to do? So think about, when we have our coordinate points, how are we going to graph these? So our independent variable here is always our X. So this is our number of pom-poms, how many we sold, and then our Y, our dependent variable, is the money that we raised. So if you wanted to go ahead and rewrite these as ordered pairs, we have 10, 450, 50, 2250, and 110, 4950. So hopefully that's coming back to you about how we write our ordered pairs out. So now we can go ahead and graph these. And if you guys remember, we always we graph our X first before we go up or down. We run before we jump. So first let's go over 10. So we know our 50's right here. So half of 50, this point right here is going to be 25. So we're going to be pretty close to that 0 for our 10. And since we don't have exact tick marks, I'm just going to kind of guess here. So I'm going to say maybe 10's like right here. And then 450 is going to be very, very close to that line. So I'm just going to put a dot right here and say that is 10, 450. So our next one is 50, 2250. So I go over 50 this time and then go up 2250. We know 25 is right at this line, so 2250 is just going to be right underneath it. And then our last one, 110 and 4950. So I'm going to go over 110, just a little outside that 100, and then go right underneath that 50 mark to get that 4950. So those are my 3 ordered pairs that I've plotted from my table. And now I'm just going to connect the points from 0 and do the best I can to connect these points to make my line. And so there you can kind of see our independent and our dependent variables there, and what kind of positive relationship that has, and how you can see as we're increasing the amount of pom-poms we're selling, we're also increasing how much money that we're making there. Okay, so our last step here is asking us to write an equation that describes this relationship in this graph. So if we think about our what we wanted to get out of selling these pom-poms is we wanted to raise $50. So what we wanted to get here is we wanted to raise money. So we're gonna keep our dependent variable R. This is how much money we wanted to raise. And how would we calculate out, how do you guys think we would be able to calculate out how much money we raised? So think back about what calculation we used in step 1 to figure out how much money we actually raised here. How did we figure out what our R was going to be? So what we did is we multiplied our 45 cents, what we're making, by how many number of pom-poms that we're selling. And so this is the equation that we can use to figure out how much money we're going to raise. And so now let's actually answer this question here. We wanted to make $50. So we want to figure out how many pom-poms would we have to sell to make that $50. So let's think back about if we're solving one-step equations here, what operation is being used here? So when the numbers are next to a variable, we know we're multiplying. And to undo the operation, to isolate n to solve for n, we are going to divide. So what we're going to do here is we're going to divide by 0.45 on each side of the equation. Remember, these 0.45s cancel each other out. So what we're left with is 50 divided by 0.45 equals the amount of pom-poms that we are going to have to sell. So how many pom-poms would we have to sell here? So if we actually divide these out, we get around 111, and it's 0.11111. But since we can't sell 1/10 of something, we're just going to say we need to sell 111 pom-poms to be able, and actually since we have to sell a little bit over 111, we're just going to round it up and say 112 to exactly make our $50.